Hello, my beautiful dumplings, and welcome back to your official second feature Monday. No, you guys did not like the first one, but too bad, I am going to continue with them. Why? Because I want to share my art, and so I'm going to. But it's okay if you guys don't like Avatar, surely you like Arcane. And if you like Arcane, then you must love my boy Viktor, and if you don't, the exit is behind you. Now, jokes aside, this is my second feature Monday of my piece of Viktor called The Line. Obviously, I'm definitely not a 21 Pilots fan. No, that was not me crying in the corner of the mosh pit when car radio started playing at the Sydney concert. Don't judge me, I was overwhelmed. But alas, this is a very unique piece of mine. Now, I did realize as I started editing, I did not film the sketch for this piece. Don't ask me why. I'm stupid. I forgot to press the record button, but you do get to see me render this god-awful image. I love the Machine Herald design. Truly, it's an awesome design, but this is out of the realm of art that I do completely. I also decided I was going to make it lineless. Why? Because I hate myself. Who needs line work to make things easy when you could just spend hours hating your life choices? But I did feel, given his design, that something lineless and a bit more organic was kind of what I wanted to lean towards. Especially since I was going for that more ethereal, loose vibe. I felt like with line work, it was just going to restrict me a little bit too much and be a little too neat. Thankfully, just the head of Viktor's Machine Herald design is somewhat simple in that there's not a lot of complex design that I couldn't do without line work, or without having line work. So a lot of this process was just me painting, looking at details, trying to see where the highlights and shadows was, and trying to figure out how you draw a human face that has been split and torn apart. Turns out, that's really difficult. Who'd have thought? But since Viktor's head is mostly symmetrical, I did get to use my favorite tool, the symmetry ruler, which saved me a lot of time. It also just let me focus in a lot more on the details and where the shading and highlights needed to be, so I could actually express those details. Thankfully as well, I am not the only Viktor fanboy, and as you can see, someone very lovingly did a 3D sculpt of his head, which made it so much easier for me to render. With a lot of the references from Arcane itself, there's a lot of colours and it was very hard to tell what was just ethereal gobbledygook and what was actually design and part of like his head and helmet. But thanks to whoever made that 3D model, I really apologize. I did this piece a couple of months ago and I can't remember where I found it, but thank you so much because that was a lifesaver. Now, as you can see, I spent a long time just trying to figure out the head, where I wanted highlights mainly, since that's kind of what portrayed a lot of his head to me, was the very defined highlights, points, edges. And then slowly adding colour in where I wanted colour, because again, I did kind of want to incorporate that more ethereal look. As you can see with the bottom image, there's a lot of different colours going on, so I was trying to render out the purple before I added other colours on top, so I kind of knew where the shapes were and I wasn't just getting lost in adding a whole bunch of colours together. I will definitely say that the majority of this piece probably was this crest that I'm working on right now. Reason being, if you look at the 3D model, you can tell that he has a lot of designs along the top of his head, a lot of swirls, a lot of wave shapes, and I really wanted to make sure that I portrayed that kind of ornate crest on his head and didn't just leave it as one big thing. But also, that whole crest has a blue hue on it in the show, so I wanted to kind of do it multicolored. I kind of stuck mainly to the teal and purple since that's what was easiest and kind of within my skill range. But yeah, I pretty much just plod along for a little bit, just doing his crest, trying to make it look as cresty as I can. Now, the other bit that I found really important was decoration on his neck. Now, there's a lot of gold on people's skin during the Viktor arc, and I kind of interpreted it as kind of inbuilt jewelry in a way. Metallic bits that were kind of embedded in the skin and just very ornate. So you can see me kind of rendering it out like metal because I kind of wanted it to look like gold jewelry. And of course, because it's Viktor, tons and tons of random spots of color. Now, he does also have these little circles that are kind of reminiscent of like the things that shimmer cause on the skin, as well as the similar kind of shapes from the runes. But not only does he have really ornate neck, he has lots of hair too, and a god-awful cape. I didn't spend too long on the hair since his hair is kind of just one big color. I just kind of made sure that it was in the shape I wanted it and vaguely represented hair. Now at this point, I've kind of blocked out what I want to do for the cape and had to figure out how I wanted to do the colors and the rendering. I very early on realized that I didn't really want to do a full figure, and I kind of wanted him to be fading off into the background with his cape just kind of melting in. So my plan kind of going forward was bulk it out, slowly start to render around it, and then kind of slowly start to blend it in as I continued. But of course, I am also a sucker for jumping around my canvas. If you watched my last Feature Monday, you would have seen that I jump around a lot. And part of that is to keep me interested in the piece, but also so I don't forget certain elements that I do want to include later on. So throughout this entire process, you'll see me working on the cape and then bouncing to the background, to his face, to other details, and just kind of jumping around doing random bits here and there. Now this was done to keep everything cohesive, however was also to make sure that I did have enough room to include all of the elements I wanted to, because as you'll see here, I wanted to add runes around his rim, the same kind of way that he has in the show, but as I said in the beginning, this is called The Line. The Line, of course, being the 21 Pilots song that was written for Arcane. And I wanted to convert the runes from around his halo into the lyrics from The Line. But there wasn't really a font that I felt was rune enough, so I decided to handwrite the entire lyrics of the song around his head. So I did spend quite a bit of time around this. Thankfully, the lyrics tend to be a little bit repetitive, so I could copy and paste, which did save my life a few times. Again, you'll also see me jumping from this. I kind of did it initially, just put it down so I wouldn't forget that I wanted to do that, figure out how I want to do it, jump around, and then eventually finished it off. But I am glad I did it because I do really like the look of the finished product with having the lyrics kind of very subtly put into the piece. At this point, the lyrics are done and I can start finishing off that cape. Like I said, I did want to include a lot of the different colors that are in the Machine Herald design, but I did want it to kind of blend in a little, so you'll see me start to cut out different shapes, blend things out, and kind of make it match the background a little bit more, because I did want it to look like it was blending, such kind of pulling apart in that runic way, as you see in the show. Did include a lot of rendering, a lot of highlights, shading, that sort of thing, because the cape is quite complex and it does feature a lot of different colors kind of melting and blending into each other. But also that runic motif is just everywhere with the pulling apart circles. So at this point you can see that I'm mostly done and it's kind of end of the artwork mostly. I'm just going in, adding small details, fixing anything up that I notice, and just kind of making it a little bit more cohesive. Now I do go in and start to change some of the colors and blending modes just to kind of make things be where I want them to be. But given that most of the rendering is done, of course most of the piece is done. At this point you can start to see that I'm really blending things out because I did want it to melt into the background. And I feel like the piece really comes together as I'm adding in these final details because I'm playing around a lot and seeing what does and doesn't work. And like I said at the beginning, this is my first time kind of doing any piece like this, so a lot of this was just exploring and figuring out what I liked, what I knew I could do, all of that. It really is just an amalgamation of all of the types of art that I know how to do, all the techniques I know, and that sort of stuff. And overall, I'm really happy with how it came out. Now this one, like Twilight Nights, will probably end up at some point being an art print. So if you like your boy Viktor, keep your eyes open. I do have to figure out the logistics of doing art prints, but I do think things like Viktor and Twilight Nights will be semi-popular. If you have any questions for me, any comments, let me know down below. Remember to chuck us a follow. As always, I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.